Hello, my name is Owen, and welcome to the most important video you've ever seen in your life. It's the top books of 2023. That's right. That's right. Everybody dance, get up. And I know what you're going to say. Owen, I'm not going to get up. I'm not going to start dancing. Not because it's a ridiculous thing to do by your command, but because there's a whole month left, guys. Oh, and there's December. You forgot about December. It's not the end of the year. You can't be doing your job. I can do whatever I want, first of all. Second of all, I don't plan on reading that many books next month. Gonna be upfront with you. If I finish any books, it'll be 2, 3 max. And I don't expect any of them to be breaching the top 5 of the year. Come on, let's not be ridiculous here. Second of all, December is a transitory period. I'm a forward thinker. I'm sorry my brain moves so fast that I'm a month ahead of you. I'm already zooming into the new year. What are you gonna do about it? Absolutely nothing. Here's my top 5 books of the year, guys. And just as a reminder, for last year, my honorary mention to last year's winner, The Count of Monte Cristo. Great book, a classic book, a book for intelligent people. Didn't read as many classics as I wanted to this year. So just a spoiler, number 1's not a classic, guys. It's not. But it's a classic in my heart, and it's my favorite of the year. Let's jump straight into it. I'm full of energy. I'm full of joy. I'm full of jubilant energy, and so should you. Number 5, we have The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. A little bit of a surprise pick for you. Very, very popular book, certainly. And I read this book, I actually listened to this book on audiobook a couple months ago, and it really blew me away, and I thought it was very unique. Obviously, it is a popular book. A lot of people like it. It's very well known. I feel like she's an author that's really exploded onto the scene in recent years. But I thought this book in particular had a very, very unique structure. It's kind of structured as like a interview with this celebrity, Evelyn Hugo, this fictional celebrity, and it's told through the interview, her dialogue with the reporter's perspective, the reporter's own personal life, and then flashbacks to the time that Evelyn is talking about. So it kind of jumps around a little bit with time and with perspective and stuff like that, and it really is immersive in the way that it is written. And I think Reid does a great job at making you feel that this Evelyn Hugo character was real, and it's the immersive of this golden age of Hollywood times. And I know Evelyn Hugo's based on like a real actress who had like 7 husbands or a lot of husbands, stuff like that. But really, this does feel like a really fleshed out character and really immerses you, like I said, in that gold age of Hollywood. Has that feel in the flashbacks, and then the transitions to like the interview, the modern day portions are really seamless. And I think even though Evelyn is obviously the main focus, it's the framing of the whole story which really grabbed me. It's kind of separated her life into the men in her life. So the 7 husbands, it's kind of like sectioned points of her life where she was married to each of these men, which is a purposeful decision by the author to frame it that way. And as you read the book, it becomes more clear. I just think it was fantastically written. It was very easy to read. It was very entertaining to read, and it really brought her onto my radar. And I immediately read Daisy Jones after that. Didn't like Daisy Jones quite as much, just because I think Evelyn Hugo, along with the structure, had a really powerful emotional hook. And I think that the purpose for writing that story was very, very clear to me, and I thought it hit a little bit like deep. It was kind of deep, and I enjoyed it. So that made my list. That's on my number 5 of the year, and I can't wait to check out more of her books because there's still a lot of her popular works that I haven't got to yet. And I'm excited that she's a modern author. She's still pumping out stuff, and I'm happily a fan. Moving on to number 4, we have Lonesome Dove by Larry McMurtry. This is another surprise one that came out of nowhere for me. Obviously, this is a classic Western book, very popular Western, but I'm not a Western Joe, all right? I'm not a Western Andy. I'm not a Western Bill. I'm not a Western Wally. Got to end in alliteration, that's what they say. But this one was recommended because Mike's book reviews raved about this book. He said it was like the best book he ever read, possibly in his life, which I thought was very high praise from him. So on a whim, I took this also out as an audiobook. So a lot of audiobooks this year. And it was a long one. It was like over 30 hours plus, but this is really solidified the type of subgenre that I like. And I talk about this a lot on the channel now. Slice of life fiction is just my jam. And for those of you that don't know, slice of life means it's slower paced. It's about the characters. It's about immersing in the world with the characters, sticking with them as they do these on paper mundane things, but it really adds like a depth and immersiveness. So this is a story, it's obviously about the West, about these cattle drivers, and especially like the first half is just an ensemble cast. You're setting up these characters, you're with them, and they're just hanging out, they're just talking, they're driving these cattle. On the very surface, the plot details, they sound very, very boring, but the author, McMurtry, does a great job of creating these well-rounded characters. And I feel like there's some you hate, there's some you love, but none of them are like caricatures. At least I didn't feel that way. They all fit very realistic, and they were all so engaging that you just wanted to stick with these characters as they were doing the most mundane things. So that way, when the plot does kick in the second half and it comes to the climax, you're so invested in these people. So everything they do, you're on the edge of your seat. And even like it gets to the point where even the most side characters, when they go on they're a big moment at the end of the book, you're so engaged and you love every single one of them as if you've been with them, like the amount of time that the characters have known each other, if that makes sense. It's a masterclass on like immersive, slower pace, but really, I don't know, not deep, but it's just really, really gripping. So even if you're not a fan of Westerns, it's just a great story. It's just a great story about a bunch of people in this time period, and like Seven Husbands of Evelyn and Hugo, very immersive of this time. Really takes you into that setting and takes you into a style of life that just isn't around the way it used to be. And I think it's a great book, and I can't wait to read the sequel sometime next year. I just thought it was incredible. And that's just my number 4, guys. We're only moving up from here. Number 3, we have another book I raved about. It's My Cousin Rachel by Daphne du Maurier. Du Maurier is one of my favorite authors at the moment. I love all of the work. All of her work that I read so far, I've absolutely loved. And this was my favorite book of hers of all time. I really liked Rebecca. I really liked Jamaica Inn, but My Cousin Rachel, I think, takes what du Maurier is good at and just ramps it up to another level. So this one is about a guy who's, I think it's his cousin, owns this like plot of land, and he's like an older brother to him, and then he passes away, and this guy, the main character, gets this estate. But then his cousin's wife, who he'd never met before, comes to live with him. It's kind of the mystery. Did she kill him? Is she just a widow? He doesn't really know her, but he's enamored with her. She's kind of mysterious. And the du Maurier special of realistic tension. It's borderline horror, but nothing scary is happening. It's just anxiety. It's just a little bit of suspicion. And I feel like it's done, obviously Rebecca's very famous for this. It's the looming shadow of Rebecca in Rebecca, right? But this one, it's more direct. This is the only book of hers I read with as a male protagonist, and I feel like he's very well-rounded. He has a very interesting set of flaws that get him into some predicaments here. But Rachel is such a great character here, where you never fully know what she's thinking. And one page you'll be thinking, oh, she's definitely in the clear. She's not suspicious at all. The next page you're like, oh my God, she's a murderer. She's out to kill him. And you are stuck in this mystery along with the character. And where he's confused, you're confused. Where he's on the right track, you're like, I don't know if you're on the right track. And even to the very last page, I had no idea where it was going. And it was just a thrilling mystery. But it's not like a detective story. It's just personal drama, and it's not like overblown. It's not over the top. It's just straight up engaging. And it was the most fun I had reading one of her books, and I think the ending was fantastic. And I really had a lot of fun reading this book. And I think that if you're going to read any du Maurier, I think that's my new top recommendation, is My Cousin Rachel. I just think it was fantastic, and my number 3 book of the year. Moving on to number 2, and I know what you're going to say for this one. You're going to say recency bias over here. That's what they call me. But I read a book nary but a week ago that was so good, that blew me away, that it's making my number 2 spot of the year. That is The Comfort Crisis by Michael Easter. This is a nonfiction book. This is kind of like a self-helpy book, just about like how modern society, we have a lot of comforts that people back in the day obviously didn't have. We were hunters, we were gatherers. Now we're kind of just like couch potatoes, essentially. And I know it sounds like it's very like, oh, like back in the day, humans were better. It's like kind of that, but like for a scientific perspective, which sounds like it could be very preachy, sounds like it could be very condescending. But Easter is very realistic about how he talks about these things. And it's a fascinating look at how we're evolving as people. But it's also told, like, this science self-healthy part is kind of told interspersed through a narrative, through a story of his own life about his hunting trip in Alaska. And it was so gripping, it was so entertaining. His style of presenting information is so engaging and interwoven with this really fascinating story of this adventure that he went on. I think it was a perfect way to deliver this information. I like dabbling into nonfiction. I like dabbling into like just self-help type books. Not because I need a lot of help, guys. Okay? That's not why. But I just think it's fascinating. I like to delve into those. And this book was, I watch Cody Ko's fitness vlogs, and he recommended this book. That's how I found it. But I read it, and I thought it really, really was fantastic. I think it was a great mix of genuinely good life advice, coupled with an engaging author with a story to tell. And you could tell he did a lot of backbone research into this. And I gotta see if he has any other books, because I really liked his writing style and I found it very engaging. And I enjoyed it so much that I think I started it one day, finished it the next day, and it's my number 2 of the year. So if you're gonna check out a nonfiction book, The Comfort Crisis by Michael Easter is definitely what I would recommend to you. Moving on to number 1, surprisingly, if you watched my mid-year checkup ranking, it's the same book. My number 1's the same. It was not dethroned. It is Royal Assassin by Robin Hobb. It's true. It is. It's Royal Assassin by Robin Hobb. Not just because it's a great book, because it is a great book. Not just because it has the protagonist Fitz, my favorite protagonist of all time, because it does. But because the trilogy as a whole was so amazing, you just had to pick the best one. It's really representative of the whole trilogy. I think the trilogy itself is fantastic, and the best book I think is Royal Assassin. But really, the reason it's my number 1 is because it introduced me to Robin Hobb. Only read 4 of her books. I'm reading my 5th right now, but she has skyrocketed out of nowhere onto my favorite author list. One of my favorite authors, definitely top fantasy authors list. And because of that, this Farseer trilogy is just solidified in the Hall of Fame, the greats. It's a first-person fantasy trilogy, which I think is very, very hard to pull off. Usually, first person is reserved, I feel like, for young adult stories, young adult fantasy. It's getting rarer and rarer to see in like modern adult fantasy, because I feel like it's just hard to be great. Maybe it's easier to be good, but it's harder to be great. And I think Fitz is some of the, again, a thread here in a lot of these books. It's just a great, layered, complex protagonist with realistic issues in a fantastical world. And I think Fitz is, his flaws, I could just relate to him, man. When he makes dumb errors, I'm like, damn if I wouldn't have done the same exact thing. And there's not much else I'm looking for in a book like that. It's a story where everyone acts exactly how they should act if they were that person in that scenario. And it's so refreshing. And like Lonesome Dove, it's slice of life. She's not rushing into the action. She's not rushing into fighting the dragons, to world wars, armies clashing, trebuchets. We're not rushing into that. It's character first, explore the magic of the world second, and the magic is magical. I think her magic system in this series is absolutely thrilling. It's absolutely engaging. It's unique. And I think it just gets better and better as the series goes on. But of those books, Royal Assassin is definitely my favorite. So just really, it's a recommendation for that entire trilogy. If you like fantasy or you like just great character work, you can't go wrong with Royal Assassin. And you can't go wrong with the Farseer trilogy, rather. I just think it's absolutely a fantastic set of books. And I'm so glad that I stumbled upon that series this year, because it's the thing I'm happiest about. It's my number 1 book, even though I'm technically doing it for all 3, the trilogy, but it's just got to be my number 1, guys. And obviously, I want to know what your guys' top books are, because in the next few weeks, I'll be contemplating, what does the O-Meister want to read for 2024? And as I've said before, I made that video last year, did not follow through with it at all. But I still want to know. And also, Sam, If you're watching this, you said in an earlier video that you'd give me your recommendation and that I would have to read your book, and you said you'd put your honor and blood on the line. So maybe you should say that. Maybe your favorite book of the year should be your recommendation, because it better be high quality if I'm going to be reading your book. If I'm going to be taking recommendations from the layman in the comment section, it better be a great book, because I got high standards. And some would say I'm the smartest man alive. But be sure to like and subscribe if you like the video and want to see more like in the future. And as always, thanks for sticking around.